Hello, fellow Amazonians. It's David from Wanapolo with another Seller Forum discussion. Today we have a post about transparency program from Boogie Boa. Thoughts about transparency. Amazon keeps messaging me about signing up for transparency. However, I'm reluctant to add another layer of complexity to my listings. Is anyone here using it? Any thoughts? So we've used transparency for some time now, and we have multiple clients using it, and we've used it for our brands as well. And I'm going to share a story and then go into the pros and cons of the program. And the reason why we looked into transparency is, well, first of all, let's talk about what transparency is. It's a unique barcode label you will have to purchase from the transparency dashboard, and that the label, the barcode, needs to be applied to each product before it is accepted into the FBA warehouse. And supposedly, you're supposed to, if you do FBM, Fulfilled by Merchant, you're supposed to upload the code to each order page before you can sell it, but we've never done that. And it seems like as long as you're one of the authorized sellers in the transparency program for the brand, then you don't really have to upload the barcode for FBM. But for FBA, each of your products have to have one of the unique serial codes. So each barcode is different. So that's what it means by unique serial code on each of your products that you will have to purchase from transparency. So that's what it is. It gates your products in FBA and also protects your brand from sellers as well. And the reason why we use this because we had a licensing deal with a Chinese manufacturer for one of our brands, and the licensing deal was essentially they can use our brand to put on their products and sell on Amazon, and we would get a fee for each unit sold. And we obviously have the visibility because we have access to the Amazon account. We would help them sell too, in for a period of time. So we had access to all the sales, and that way we knew what to charge based on the information on the seller account. And over time, there was a period where they just didn't pay for half a year to 9 months, and that was a breach of contract. Essentially, we basically figured that they were not going to pay us because they just kept coming up with excuses like, oh, our accountant is off apparently for 9 months, and that's why they can't pay us. So what they did essentially was thought that we can't stop them because they already have been selling on the brand for so long, and it's like they're one of the admins for the brand on their Seller Central and brand registry. But what they didn't know is that transparency existed. And at the time, it was like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. At the time, transparency was new, so we knew what it was gating and protecting our brand. So even though they had brand rights, we were the brand owners. So we applied for transparency, and pretty much overnight, they could not send their inventory to FBA anymore. They could not use the listing, the ASINs, the brand, nothing. They were just locked out overnight. And that basically helped us enforce our contract, our licensing rights, when they couldn't pay. And that's why we started using transparency, and we kept using transparency. So we actually started sourcing our own products under that brand, and that we licensed originally, and we kept it under transparency, and we kept going and got the sales and recouped our money and investment of the brand that we licensed out. But that's essentially why we use transparency, to gate the brand from other sellers and to prevent other people from shipping inventory to FBA to hijack our listings with Prime, that is. So that's the main reason we used it, and I don't really see any other reason why you would want to go through the extra steps and costs to go in transparency if you don't need to protect your listing. So for example, what I mean by that is if you're not really a popular brand or product, so like your sales are not that high, there's no reason for someone to hijack your listing, or there's not a lot of people trying to sell into your listing, then I would say not bother going to transparency. Because first of all, for each production run you make, you have to order transparency codes from the transparency program. And on the first run, you have to go through OPR, which is like operational readiness process, where you have to register with them to make sure that you meet the minimum requirement on your first shipment to FBA that your products are labeled properly. And that's an extra step you have to do on your first shipment. And then after that, you have to keep ordering labels. And then you have to use a special type of label program that can print serialized labels. We use a program from Siegel. I forgot the name. I think it's called, it's by Siegel, though, the company. You can look it up if you're trying to find a program. And that's also a kind of expensive software because not many printer softwares can print serialized codes from an Excel sheet, right? And then you have to send it to the manufacturer, and they have to add an extra step of labeling each box when they're packaging it. And sometimes if you forget, the factory forgets like a certain couple of units of they forget the transparency label, then FBA rejects it. It goes into defect. So unless you're highly targeted for hijackers, or you're trying to prevent other people from buying your buy box, then I wouldn't do transparency. However, if you're a brand owner and you want to stop people from hijacking your buy box or sending your goods to FBA, then transparency is a great program for you, because once you sign up for transparency, first of all, your brand's automatically gated. Only you get to choose which seller has the right to sell your brand. And then the second part is, if you have only access to those codes, then you get to control what is sent to FBA. So you get to control the prime buy box, essentially. So that's why transparency can be useful in those situations. So some other drawbacks too, that besides I already mentioned about the extra steps and the costs, is we've had experience shipping to Europe where transparency coded products do not get processed at all. It gets just rejected. There are times where we had shipments to UK or Germany or Australia where everything was labeled correctly, but perhaps the system routed it to a different warehouse that can't accept transparency products, and it got deemed as defective, and we just lost the shipment. Just like, it was stranded as the defect, and we couldn't do anything about it but to remove it and dispose it, because we don't have a location to reprocess the defective shipments in those in Europe or Australia. So that is a drawback as well, that you have a chance of just getting a shipment of defective items because the transparency labels were not done right, or they just couldn't scan it in. So that's really the gist of transparency. So I would do it if you are trying to protect your buy box, because there's a lot of people competing for the buy box, or if you are often hijacked. And that's really the only reason I would suggest transparency. Otherwise, save yourself the trouble. It's extra costs, extra steps in manufacturing, and sometimes you may get rejects in the FBA as well because they couldn't scan it in. So those are my 2 cents. And if you found this video helpful, please do leave a thumbs up. It takes very little effort from you, and it makes a massive impact on how YouTube ranks my content. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.